Welcome back. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff met with Russian President Vladimir Putin over the American proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. Putin says that he supports a truce in principle, but set out issues to be addressed before he signs it. Later, President Trump said on social media that there is a very good chance that, quote, horrible, bloody war can finally come to an end. Our recent commentary piece examines the diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine from a Catholic perspective. Daniel Gallagher, who worked in the Vatican Secretariat of State for a decade under Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, says the work requires extreme patience and painstaking strategy. Writing for the National Catholic Register, Gallagher also says in part, quote, although the Church offers her teaching and above all her prayers to bring this bloody war to an end, she would never ultimately claim to have the practical answers to do so. Consequently, there is room for disagreement over the path most conducive to peace. Gallagher also quotes Henry Kissinger, a prominent 20th century diplomat who once said, quote, it is barely conceivable that there are people who like war. And today we are happy to have Daniel Gallagher on our show. He is a lecturer in literature and philosophy at Ralston College in Savannah, Georgia. Dan, great to be with you. So tell us, why was it important for you to write this piece?
Well, Tracy, thank you for having me. And I would say that the primary thing that motivated me is we really do need to apply some principles of Catholic social teaching to this particular conflict, but also more broadly to a changing world order. We've never been in a more crucial pass in revisiting basically the relationships that we have and multilateral relationships, particularly in Europe and with the United States. And all of this is coming to a head very sadly and tragically in a war which is hurting everyone. And I wrote this piece basically trying to propose some of the principles that we need to reflect on more deeply in order to perhaps come to some answers. And the quote that you had just shared there about the practical answers, the Church wants to be involved, is involved, and isn't necessarily involved to that point of coming up with the exact diplomatic solution. But I am finding in my study of Catholic social teaching that there are a lot of principles and ideas that have to bear on this particular conflict and then on what hopefully follows out of a peace process in the current conflict.
Yeah, I know you mentioned early on the tense meeting that we saw between President Trump and President Zelensky in the Oval Office, saying the world caught a glimpse of what happens behind closed doors. Your thoughts on what took place during that meeting?
Yeah, so Tracy, I was watching this live and I was quite surprised, as many were. But I also, I think, share the experience of others who've been involved in diplomacy and realizing that there was really nothing that unusual about this exchange between the President of the United States, the President of Ukraine, and the Vice President Vance of the United States. But it never really is seen on camera. My take on this event is that, unfortunately, there was an opportunistic let's say, taking advantage of an opportunity to put something out there in front of the wider public. I don't know if it was planned or not, but it obviously caused some very high tensions. On the other hand, I also began to realize that this was not necessarily the end of hopefully a peace process which is not in place, but God willing, we'll be able to put in place in the near future, or sometime even in the next couple of years. And I don't think that this derailed the hopes of that kind of a process. My hope in being involved in behind the door kind of disputes like this is that you can actually turn it around to make it contribute to that, to reaching a point of perhaps a ceasefire and a process. It's complicated how it gets to that point, but I think that in international diplomacy, in the climate that we're living in, we really have to take everything possibly that can be taken as an opportunity for a step forward needs to be taken in that way. And that might be unusual to look at this event in those terms, but that's the way that I view this, and I view today's events as well in the meeting between U.S. and Russian officials in order to try to come to an agreement on what the next steps are.
And to really leave it right there, thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate it. God bless.
God bless. Thank you, Tracy.